Still calling your congressman? Waiting on hold? Hoping someone took your message?
Thank you for calling.
There's a better way to do this. The Maha Legislative Tracker lets you browse every Maha bill. Pick the ones that matter to you and send a letter to your rep with a single click. Search federal, by state, or by the issues you care about most. Take 60 seconds and make it count. Your voice can make America healthy again at mahaaction.org.
There was a time when the news delivered truth,
It still seems like a dream.
when integrity was paramount,
I cannot contend that I have always been right or wise.
and trusted voices guided a nation.
How do you measure such an astonishing moment?
Today, the headlines are blurred, the signal lost in the noise of corporate agendas and paid narratives.
Vocal anti-vaxxer.
Deranged lies.
It is humiliating.
What happened to the truth? It hasn't disappeared. It's simply moved. The Maha Report brings you unfiltered, independent journalism covering the issues of the Make America Healthy Again movement. Rediscover the facts and reclaim the truth. Subscribe now at themahareport.com.
Welcome to the Maha Media Hub, and welcome to the Maha Revolution. I'm Tony Lyons, president of Maha Action. I want to start with last Thursday's Supreme Court ruling for Bayer Monsanto because it's a devastating blow to public health. By shielding the maker of Roundup from liability for failing to warn people, the court put profits ahead of American families. John Darnell used Roundup for about 20 years and developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A jury of ordinary Americans heard the evidence and held Monsanto accountable. And the Supreme Court just threw that verdict out. The message to families is, once Washington stamps a label approved, you get no say at all, no day in court. And here's what's hard to stomach. Monsanto could have warned people. 2 justices said exactly that. This is the same company whose old safety study was retracted just last year, after it came out that they'd helped ghostwrite it. And this isn't the left versus the right. The dissent was written by Justice Jackson and joined by Justice Gorsuch, appointed by opposite parties. So this is corporate capture, plain and simple, exactly what this movement, the Maha movement, exists to end. So hear me clearly. This isn't the end of the fight. It's the start of a bigger one. We'll go to Congress and demand that they restore every American's right to hold these companies accountable. And the Senate, writing its farm bill right now, must not write this shield back in. We'll push the EPA for an honest, independent review of glyphosate, built on real science, not studies paid for by the people selling the chemical. And we'll take it to the ballot box because this is why the midterms matter and why we need Maha candidates elected. Monsanto has the money, the lawyers, the power, and now a ruling from the Supreme Court. But we have something much stronger. We have millions of Americans tired of being told to sit down and accept a food system that's making them and their kids sick. And we will not be quiet. We will not back down. We won't stop. Thursday's decision is a setback, but not the final word. And together, we're going to win. Now, as hard as that ruling was, this same week also brought major wins for the Maha movement. Victories that show our message is breaking through and our priorities are moving forward. President Trump signed an executive order directing HHS, USDA, and EPA to scale regenerative agriculture across America. That means strengthening farm resilience, rebuilding soil health, reducing input costs, improving profitability for farmers, expanding export markets, and supporting rural communities. That's exactly the kind of long-term thinking we need if we're serious about reducing our dependence on toxic chemicals while keeping American agriculture strong. Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Oz also announced tremendous progress on eliminating healthcare fraud to the tune of $6.5 billion. We also saw continued commitment to the Streets Initiative, expanding peer support, strengthening faith-based partnerships, and helping more Americans find lasting recovery from addiction. We're bringing back the presidential fitness test and reversing the failed Fauci-era policies that did so much damage to public health, as well as public trust. And just yesterday, Secretary Kennedy announced the end of the COVID-19 EUA declarations. HHS made clear that the emergency authorities used during COVID are no longer justified. As Secretary Kennedy put it, Americans deserve a regulatory system that is transparent, accountable, and rooted in the rule of law. And emergency powers must be temporary and highly targeted. This is a major step towards restoring accountability, transparency, and trust in our public health agencies. And there's more accountability ahead. After years of oversight efforts led by Senator Rand Paul, Dr. Fauci has finally been subpoenaed and is expected to testify on July 29th. MAHA is making just incredible progress, but we can't lose focus or get discouraged by setbacks because the people and the institutions pushing centralized control over health, food, agriculture, and public policy are still incredibly powerful, and they're still organized, and they're still working to shape the future of this country in their perverse image, not one that serves all of us, not one that serves the American people. One of the clearest examples is Bill Gates. Gates represents a broader model of power, private wealth influencing public health, vaccine policy, food systems, farmland, synthetic meat, climate interventions, global institutions without any transparency or democratic accountability. During COVID, Gates became one of the most visible private figures promoting mass vaccination and restrictive policies. No unelected billionaire should have that much influence over public health decisions that affect millions of American families. Let's be honest about what's at stake. While this administration is rebuilding our food system by investing in regenerative agriculture and healthier farming practices, Bill Gates has consistently backed a very, very different vision, one centered on technological interventions, including genetically modified mosquitoes, solar geoengineering research, large-scale farmland acquisition, lab-grown meat, and synthetic food production. MAHA believes that the future of health begins by restoring nature, not by replacing it. These are not isolated issues. These are part of a larger fight over who controls our health, our food supply, our farms, our children's future, and of course, our basic freedoms. The MAHA movement stands for something very different. We stand for real food. We stand for regenerative agriculture. We stand for family farms. We stand for medical freedom. We stand for transparency, informed consent, and accountability. And we stand for parents, children, farmers, workers, and communities. And we are proving that when people get organized, when they speak the truth, when they refuse to back down, they can win. So yes, this was a great week for MAHA, but we can't get complacent. We have to stay vigilant and focused, and we must keep fighting. Now we have a tremendous lineup of guests today. You're going to hear from Stephanie Spear, Deputy Chief of Staff to Secretary Kennedy, Dr. Joe Ladapo, Surgeon General for Florida, Dr. Ben Carson, National Nutrition Advisor at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, from our very own Del Bigtree, founder and CEO of Informed Consent Action Network, from Joe Mitchell, Iowa District 2 GOP nominee for Congress, from Mary Holland, CEO of the Incredible Children's Health Defense, from Ben Tapper, Doctor of Chiropractic and host of the Dr. Ben Tapper podcast, and then from Dr. Eric Berg, the Knowledge Doctor. First up, we're joined by the Senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Long before MAHA became a movement, Senator Johnson was asking the difficult questions. He was questioning authority and asking things that others refused to ask. He was one of the first members of Congress to challenge the government's COVID response, to listen to vaccine-injured Americans, and to demand greater transparency from our public health agencies. He's remained a tireless advocate for accountability, scientific integrity, and the health of all of the American people. Welcome, Senator. Great to have you back with us.
Well, Tony, thank you for everything you do, you and your organization do. You mentioned Bill Gates. Oftentimes in my investigation, I often wonder, who are they? Who is pulling the strings? Certainly Bill Gates is one of those individuals that are part of the they. But what I want to talk about in my time here are three examples of what I consider just bombshell revelations that the legacy media, and they're obviously complicit in this. They are unbelievably powerful, but their powers begin to dwindle. But let me just lay out three examples of how powerful they are, and they use their powerful by not covering stories. But the first one I know I talked about the last time was my report, my hearing that just back on April 29th of this year, where we revealed how Peter Marks knew that his algorithm was going to hide safety signals. He was shown 26 days later 25 safety signals associated with the COVID injection, and they hid it. They're continuing to hide it. Not one major network, not one newspaper has covered that as a story. I've been on Fox News, Fox Business. The hosts have interviewed me on it, but not one major outlet has covered that as a story. So that's one instance. Again, I just think that's the greatest government scandal in my lifetime, because millions were harmed because they did not have the information. They did not get informed consent before they were coerced or mandated or forced to get that shot. Instance number two, Rand Paul had an excellent hearing. He had found a whistleblower, a CIA detailee to Tulsi Gabbard's effort they called the DIG. It was a task force set up by a presidential executive order. And the instructions, they were to find whether it's JFK assassination, the Epstein files, RFK, Fauci, and the origin story. They were supposed to find all that information, get it declassified, and make it public. In the Trump's commitment to transparency. Not one news outlet covered that story from what I could tell. As a matter of fact, the director of the CIA, his spokesperson, right before the hearing said this was political theater. I called for an apology from the CIA director, John Radcliffe. I still have not gotten that apology. Okay? So now the third example is Tulsi Gabbard's bombshell revelation on her last day of work in terms of, Fauci, again, proof that he perjured himself before Congress to say, I never talked to the intelligence community about the origins. He salted the intelligence organizations with his henchmen, the people that he provided grants that at one point early on in the pandemic thought it was man-made. Then a couple of days after, conference calls said, oh no, that's a conspiracy theory. And, published that totally bogus proximate origin study. So, again, these are bombshell revelations, hiding of safety signals, hiding of, forgot to mention with Jim Erdman, the CIA was sabotaging his efforts. They were surveilling the DIG within the Office of Director of National Intelligence. And then, of course, nobody's covering, you're not getting mainstream attention to the blockbuster Anthony Fauci continued perjury, continued conspiracy in terms of his funding of gain-of-function resource. So, I mentioned all these things without getting into detail, just to lay out the fact what we are up against. Every institution, that we are supposed to be able to rely on and trust has been infiltrated, I would consider, by the radical left, and they are destroying our country. They're destroying really what we're trying to build. They're destroying freedom. So people have to awaken to this. My colleagues in the United States Senate, they better wise up the fact that our political opponents want to destroy us. But they don't view us as political opponents. They view us as the enemy that they want to destroy so you can turn this country into a one-party nation. Then we'll never have the kind of freedom that we're going to be celebrating 250 years of realizing here. So again, that's kind of my message for today. I hope it didn't run over time.
No, that was great. I mean, clearly you've been, forcing people to disclose the truth to the public, and you've never given up. You've fought and fought and fought, and it's just a fact that the media doesn't cover important stories, that they distort stories, that they lie to the American public, and you've been pointing this out for years now, and it's just been so important. And I hope this moment is your real triumph, that this is a moment where we can get some vindication, because the American public has to know that they were lied to, they were coerced, they couldn't make real decisions, they couldn't make informed decisions because they couldn't get to the truth. And so you've been just so incredible about making that argument and making sure that everybody in this country knows what happens so that it doesn't happen again. So thank you so much, Senator Johnson, for the work you've done.
Thank you, and happy 4th of July, everybody. This is a momentous anniversary, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
Next up, we have Dr. Joe Ladapo, and he's the Surgeon General of Florida, and he earned both his MD and his PhD in health policy from Harvard. He's been a vocal opponent of the oppressive COVID measures and documented his experience in his book, Transcend Fear, a blueprint for mindful leadership in public health. But he's just been fighting all of these lies, all of these dangers to the public in Florida so incredibly successfully. And, I don't think he gets anywhere near the credit that he should be getting, because Florida is just a blueprint for what every single state ought to be doing. So thank you, Dr. Ladapo, and great to have you on again.
Thanks so much, Tony. It's great to join you guys. Happy 4th of July weekend to everyone. Special holiday of the most special country in the world, in my opinion. And so much, Tony, you started by mentioning this Supreme Court ruling, which I can't understand. I didn't go to law school. I looked a little bit at the ruling, but it does seem like as though it really does strip away the ability for individuals to be able to use new knowledge and new scientific information and fight companies that are not interested in changing their decisions from that scientific information. So to take away that power, that I get that people have to interpret the law in a way that they think makes sense to them, presumably, but just to take away something so fundamental based on a technicality doesn't make sense to me. I mean, obviously, there needs to be a different position for how we respond to new information. It's just, to just rely on federal agencies that have not consistently proven themselves to actually be able to respond to new data is, that's just insane. So I got to imagine that will that's not the end of that story, that's even just the beginning of a new chapter. And speaking of new chapters, yesterday we have a Florida Grand Rounds, and we've been able to invite many speakers over time to talk about areas of interest. And yesterday we had none other than Aaron Siri, who gave a riveting Grand Rounds that really followed the material in his book, Vaccines Amen, which is just an outstanding book. I encourage anyone who hasn't read it to read it, because it's so full of just incredibly valuable information. And he gave a great, just a terrific Grand Rounds. And, as we had him there, and with anyone who knows Aaron knows that I think probably the greatest contribution that Aaron has made to this movement for civil liberties and just common sense and a return to sanity with vaccines, we are far away from that at the moment, is just providing information that people don't know. Whether it's actually letting people know that these hepatitis B vaccines that were approved for infants were based on 4 or 5 days of safety data, or that the fact that the pertussis vaccine doesn't prevent transmission, even though doctors to this day, which is insane, recommend that the people around pregnant women take the vaccine for the baby. It's actually the opposite is true. If anything, it may be increasing the risk that the baby would contract pertussis from an individual who's been vaccinated and doesn't have symptoms. but is carrying the infection. So just a really riveting, just terrific grand rounds. We're going to be posting that on Twitter. But, it made me think, just reflect even more on the fact that, the great Senator Johnson, Mary Holland, Rob Schneider, Senator Ron Paul, we were all together in D.C. a few weeks ago. And just around that trip, I also had the pleasure of meeting Laura Delano, and I may be mispronouncing her last name. I apologize if I'm doing that. But all of that is to say that all of us who care about these issues, to continue getting together, combining forces, meeting and thinking about how, where do we need to put our energy? Where do we need to put our collective energy? Where do we need to put our resources? What are the areas that we need to, put some more attention on? It's just wonderful. Calls like this and people continuing to do that is critical. And we have to keep the attention on these issues, even when other issues are sort of hitting the headlines. So thanks again for inviting me. We have more good things coming out of Florida. This is the end of Governor DeSantis's gubernatorial term. So he's got, another 6 or so months in office, but we definitely have more good things that are going to be coming out, and you'll see them in the coming months.
Thanks, Joe. It really is true that, I want to start where you started, which is that any kind of a liability shield is just fundamentally anti-science. That if you really believe in science, if you believe that science is constantly changing, then you cannot possibly believe in a liability shield that protects companies that obviously have an incentive to keep their product on the market, being made in a factory as long as they possibly can. And that is not good for people. That is not good for families. That is not good for children. We need to incentivize people or companies to do a better job and to question everything and to put and to be open to all kinds of ideas and to the fact that science always changes. So, they use terms like anti-vax to talk about some of us, to talk about you some of the time. And, that's just a corporate talking point meant to protect their product, because you've got to be able to do exactly what you have done. You've been just so courageous standing up to these incredibly powerful people, these incredibly powerful corporations, just saying exactly what you believe to be true. And that's just, that courage is just, it's contagious, it's important, and I'm just really grateful. And, I don't think you get the credit that you should get every day for the dedication and the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Next up, we have Joe Mitchell, and he's the Republican nominee for Congress in the 2nd District of Iowa. And after running for office at just 20 years old and being sworn in to the House of Representatives in Iowa at age 21, Joe Mitchell became the youngest state legislator in state history. And during his time there, he lowered taxes, he cut red tape, and he fought for families, farmers, and small businesses. So he's really just a Maha person. And we're very just proud to have him on this show today. Welcome, Joe Mitchell.
Tony, it's an honor to be here. And it's an honor to be with the Maha crowd, too. And, when I announced my run for this election for Congressional Seat 2 in Iowa, Northeast Iowa, about 10 months ago, we had Maha people behind us immediately, because we're going to stand up to make sure that our food supply is safe. We're going to make sure that medical freedom exists, and we're going to stand up and make sure that the American people are taken care of, like President Trump and Secretary RFK Jr. are doing right now. And, we just had a resounding win in June. We won our primary overwhelmingly, running now through the tape in November with a large coalition of grassroots supporters behind us. And ultimately, Tony, from the beginning, we said we're going to run on 3 things. Number one, we're not taking corporate PAC money. So we're the only Republican in this race not taking corporate PAC money. So when we get to Washington, we'll be the only person there not taking money from Pfizer, from General Mills, from Tyson, from all these big, huge, massive companies and corporations that Republicans historically have taken money from for a lot of years. But we're going to stand up against the establishment and big, giant corporations that have taken advantage of us. So that's a big thing that set us apart from a lot of our primary challengers, but also our other candidates we're running against in the general election. The second thing is we're going to stand up for term limits. You got to have term limits. I think these guys are up there for far too long. I'm a business guy. I think turnover is good. We've said 12 years in the House, 12 years in the Senate, plenty of time to get your agenda done. And the third thing is you have to stop this insider trading. So these people go up there like Nancy Pelosi, they're worth about $2, and they come out, they're worth about $200 million. We have to stop that, the corruption with the insider trading. And last but not least, you really have to stop the lawmaker to lobbyist pipeline. You know, these people go in there, they're already looking for their next job after Congress. I think it's totally corrupt and wrong, and we're going to stop that. We vowed to not lobby after we're in Congress. We're going to come back home to Iowa and build homes. That's what I do. I'm a home builder. I'm a developer, and I love doing that. But we feel like the country needs help. We feel like the president needs help. And so that's what we're going to do. And ultimately, on the MAHA agenda, you know, my sister-in-law, Olivia, she's been a MAHA person for like the last decade. She was MAHA before MAHA was cool. And, you know, when the president won the election in November 2024, and then shortly after that, picked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the Health and Human Services Secretary, my 4 little nieces, they were all in my parents' living room for Thanksgiving. They said, no seed oils, no food dyes, and no vaccine mandates. And either between, 3 and 9 years old, they all said that. And that's because people around America, they're with the president. They believe in the MAHA agenda. We're going to stand up for it. We're going to make sure our food supply is clean. We're going to make sure that we have the best food in the world. It's not going to be this processed junk we've been eating for years. And ultimately, America's at its best when we have healthy people. Okay. And that should be a pretty nonpartisan issue. That should be a bipartisan issue, is that, we want healthy people, healthy citizens. You have to stand up for medical freedom. I did that in the House of Representatives in Iowa. And so we stood up for medical freedom. You can't have these vaccine mandates. It's ridiculous. And also, you have to stand up for the presidential fitness test. I'm a big believer in the presidential fitness test. Myself, I try to live out the MAHA agenda every day in my life. I try to exercise, 4 or 5 times a week, eat, healthy food. I don't always live up to that, but I try to. And I think any way that we can incentivize the American people to be healthier and make sure that we can hold corporations accountable, I'm going to stand up for that. I'm going to stand with President Trump and Secretary RFK Jr. when I get to Congress. Thank you, Tony.
Joe, thanks so much. And, thanks for fighting for all the right things. And, it's just great to have you on here with us today. So I just wish you the best of luck. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Take care.
So in Iowa, due to the rising cost of living, too many young people are unable to buy a home, unlikely to start a family, or, push off starting a business, because they just don't have the money for it. And this affects all of our futures. And Joe is going to fight for the American dream, for a strong economy. And he's going to work with MAHA to make sure we're getting toxic chemicals out of our soil, our food, our water. And he represents the future of this movement. He started at 20 years old, but, he's just obviously a strong, strong candidate. So that's why MAHA Action is proud to endorse Joe Mitchell for Congress. In a state that sadly ranks first in cancer rates, Joe supports regenerative farming and believes that, cover crop farming could be the answer to mass pesticide use, the alternative. So we at MAHA Action are proud to endorse him, and he's clearly just a fighter for farmers, for working families, and we look forward to his victory and to taking part in helping him achieve that victory. Next up, we have Dr. Ben Tapper. And Dr. Ben Tapper, he's a doctor of chiropractic medicine, father of 5, known for his unapologetic stance on health freedom and free speech. And as the host of the Dr. Ben Tapper podcast, He addresses really controversial topics at the intersection of medicine, government, and personal freedom. Labeled as one of the disinformation dozen, during COVID, he's been at the center of the censorship debate in this country for about 8 years now. And he's also the executive producer of The Time Is Now, amplifying voices and ideas, pushing back against any kind of centralized control. So very good to have you on. Welcome, Dr. Ben Tapper.
Tony, it's good to be here. I'm so thankful to have this opportunity to keep blowing the whistle here and shouting at the rooftops. So, sometimes I feel like a dog out of a kennel, and the government did come after me. So I think people need to understand what that means. They tried to label me one of the disinformation dozen along with RFK Jr. They said I was responsible for 65% of the misinformation on vaccines. And I said, dang it, I was shooting for 100%. But I digress here. But the biggest thing is we have to understand that we have medical tyranny at our doorstep. And if we stay complacent, we're going to let them in the door. I'm very thankful that Rand Paul is going on trial here at the end of the month. And I pray, Rand and them have a successful trial here, because Fauci has a long track record. And I only have a few minutes to discuss this, so I don't have all the time in the world to dive into the history. But the biggest thing that we have to understand is that during 2018 through 2020, there was a so-called Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and there were 4 different treatments being utilized during that time. And one of the drugs that was used was a drug called remdesivir. And this was the drug of choice during COVID-19. And Fauci knew full well that this drug during the Ebola outbreak had a 53% mortality rate. Okay, he knew full well it had a 53% mortality rate. He knew the dangers of this drug. Okay, now COVID-19, he pushed that drug as the protocol, the drug of choice used during COVID-19. Coupled with a ventilator, it was a recipe for disaster. So the death rate was high, and he knew full well that it was high, and it didn't stop him. And so that right there is a crime against humanity, one of the many. Chalk it up. And it's very concerning to me that this is occurring. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I mean, this man needs to be behind bars. If you look at the large epidemiological studies now coming out against this vaccine, we have healthy age groups, specifically men aged from 12 to 29, millions of reports of inflammation of the heart post-vaccination, especially after the second dose. This is something that should be pulled off the market. So, I'm very thankful that RFK Jr. is in there, but he's up against a Goliath. I'm very thankful for the Children's Health Defense and all these people that are speaking out, because we need more people in the fight. A triple braided cord is much stronger together. And I believe that the soil for truth is rich right now. And this is the good thing that COVID did. And Big Pharma overplayed their hand. We have Bill Gates on trial right now. And he's even said, this is like, get my aluminum hat out. Because he even said on a TED Talk that the world population is about 6.8 billion, and it's heading up to a 9 billion. But if we do a really good job on new vaccines, reproductive health, and healthcare, we can lower that about 10 to 15%. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that maybe he wants to lower the population, that he wants to cull off the people. So maybe we shouldn't be vaccinating, people from vaccines that are heavily invested by Bill Gates himself. And now he's investing into our farmland. And it's very concerning. There's a quote out there: those who control the oil control the economy, but those who control the food control the people. So we have to be encouraged, though, because, I believe that God is for us, and if he's for us, who could ever be against us? And Sam Adams said, it doesn't take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of the people. We are on the right side of history. We are on the right side of truth. And again, if God is for us, who could ever be against us? God bless you, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Dr. Tapper. And, clearly, being part of the disinformation dozen is a badge of honor. But, you were added in there, for, 65%. That's a crazy statistic. But, you're there because you were shouting the truth from the rooftops. And that really made you brave, but it also made you dangerous. And it made you dangerous to a certain group of people, to a certain group of CEOs of these big companies that have been poisoning us, lying to us, and creating chronic disease for millions and millions of people in this country. So I think that what you did was just such an important thing. And I recognize that you suffered for it. But I think that when you do that, when you have that kind of courage, you suffer less than anybody, because doing the right thing, saying what you believe, standing up to oppression, standing up for the health of millions and millions of families, nothing could be better. Nothing could be more important. So, just great work. So proud to have you on here today, and keep up the incredible job that you've been doing.
Thank you. God bless.
You too. Next up, we have Mary Holland, and she's the CEO of the incredible nonprofit Children's Health Defense. She's a prolific author, a former professor at the NYU School of Law, and she's been advocating for protecting children's health for more than 2 decades. And she's done so many things, been involved in so many important lawsuits that I just couldn't even begin to describe them. But, just so proud to have you here, so proud to work with you in the past and definitely in the future. So welcome, Mary Holland.
Tony, thank you so much. It's an honor and pleasure to be here, as always. I want to talk about Bill Gates, because we can really see with him how he has fallen from globalist grace. What a difference a decade makes. Just 10 years ago, he was at his peak. In 2016, he won from President Obama the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He was known as Good Guy Gates on the internet. And apparently in 2019, in a YouGov survey, he was the most admired person in the world. And one of the things we know from the Epstein files, which was his nemesis, is that he was gunning for a Nobel Prize and that he was willing to do virtually anything to get it. So what changed? Of course, what changed was the incredibly important disclosure of the Epstein files, and kudos to all of the legislators who made that happen. Over 3 million records have become available. This was Jeffrey Epstein's private email account, the notorious child sex offender who died recently. Before the release of the Epstein files, some people in our world were talking about the real Bill Gates, just like Bobby Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci. There's a terrific 4-part video series that I highly recommend to people called Who is Bill Gates? That James Corbett did, that's available on the Corbett Report. So anyway, we did know who he was, but most people didn't know who he was. And that's changed with the Epstein files. But Bill Gates was really the point man for the globalist agenda on vaccines, but also geoengineering, digital ID, digital currency, fake meat, and artificial intelligence. He was the go-to guy for the globalist agenda. Interestingly, a recent disclosure from a whistleblower at the National Institutes of Health has pointed out that Bill Gates basically controlled NIH with his funding through the NIH Foundation and his connections there. He basically controlled the World Health Organization. And how could it be that a private individual who happened to be a billionaire was able to do that? And actually, the Epstein files make some of that fairly clear. He worked very closely with Jeffrey Epstein's, not as he has disclosed. And one of the things he was doing since early 2011 was putting in place the financial infrastructure to fund pandemic preparedness, basically to fund what would become COVID. Some of the things we've also learned from those Epstein files is that he was literally sending money to the Taliban illegally in his effort to eradicate polio so that he could win his Nobel Prize. We also learned that he had many extramarital affairs and that he was lying to his wife and all kinds of other people in his world. He's now persona non grata, not only to the world, but perhaps more importantly, to the Davos elite who held him up as the point man. The agenda of literally global tyranny has not gone away, but it's now moving forward without Bill Gates. I think we've seen that the emperor has no clothes. I think what we can learn from this, though, is that if we were duped by Bill Gates and the Bill Gates media charade, Who else are we being duped by? What other billionaire is controlling the public narrative through PR companies and lying to us through their teeth? And we may not be able to see files that reveal so much. So sadly, I'm not going to hold my breath for Bill Gates to be behind bars, which is where he belongs. But I do hope that the public is wising up from seeing the fall of Bill Gates and understanding that actually, as Bobby Kennedy often said, his father told him as a child, people in power lie. And we have to remember that. We have to learn to be very skeptical of those in power. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mary. And, it is kind of fascinating that Bill Gates is one of the most admired, trusted people in the country for so many years, that there's just article after article extolling all the great work that he's doing all around the world. Every billionaire wanted to put in money to his fund. Now they're starting to pull out some of that money, which is a nice thing. But, people like you. Yeah. But people
and
like
Warren
you,
Buffett, he's fallen.
Yeah. But, people like you, Dr. Tapper, Del Bigtree, who's coming on later, Bobby Kennedy, Joe Latipo, all of you fought so hard. And the media said you were dangerous, said that he was great, that he was going to save us all, that he was going to create some idyllic future, and you were going to destroy mankind. So, it's an incredible thing to have stood up to a kind of a 1984 just total control, like a bid to control the whole future of mankind, and to be coming out the other side. And, we're all still alive, we're all still fighting, and we're seeing so many of the things that we fought for vindicated. So, even in Bobby's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, so many of the things that seemed crazy there, that seemed so dangerous, and that we all needed to be protected from, those things have practically all come true and been proven true. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Tony.
Next up, we have Dr. Ben Carson, and he's the National Nutrition Advisor at the USDA, and he's the former HUD secretary, author of numerous New York Times best-selling books. Not that I care about the New York Times, but that's just something that we all say. He's a retired neurosurgeon, founder of the American Cornerstone Institute. So let's welcome one of the most prominent Black conservatives in the country, the incredible Dr. Ben Carson. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you, Tony, and thank you all for being here. I just want to tell Dr. Tapper, don't feel bad because they're accusing you of misinformation. The SCLC put me on the terrorist watch list several years ago, and they got so much pushback, they took me off pretty quickly. But I think it goes with the territory. I know many of you are enjoying the Great American State Fair this week, Monday being Maha Monday. And it's so great seeing the kids running around, maybe not too much running around with the heat, but just having fresh air. I always say, if everybody avail themselves of fresh air, 6 to 8 glasses of fresh water, 8 well-balanced, healthy meals, got regular exercise and sleep, most people in the medical profession will be looking for a job. But that's not going to happen, so we don't have to worry about that. But, Maha is really about fueling our bodies so that we get the most out of them. God designed us to do great things, and he gave us what we need, but if we don't take advantage of the knowledge that we're gaining, we won't be able to accomplish those things. The Department of Agriculture has been working with the different states to try to present healthier choices, removing several things from the SNAP list. And of course, the left-wing media says we're taking food out of the mouth of the needy. That's not what we're doing at all. We've put more than twice as many things on the list, things that are actually healthy. They don't talk about that part. But the dietary guidelines for America are very interesting if you go and analyze. And one of the things we did was put whole milk back on. And several months ago, Secretary Rollins and I went out to a school. We were serving the kids lunch, and it included a carton of whole milk. And the kids were flabbergasted. Many of them had never had whole milk before. They said, "This is so good." And it looks a whole lot better than the stuff that looks like used dishwater. But those are the kinds of things that we're doing and giving our kids the kind of nourishment that they deserve. But, there's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to making America healthy again, because, as you know, we have the highest rate of chronic diseases in the world, and it's really fueled by the junk food and all the additives. And though many companies have come to the table and are willing to work with us to get these things out of the food, we can't let up. We have to keep pushing forward on that. And we can't really thrive as a nation if we're not healthy. So, we're going to keep talking about the best ways to help people flourish, good nutrition, good health. That's a big part of the conversation. And as we celebrate 250 years in our nation's birthday, we're reminded that the nation's strength really depends on its people, on the strength of its people. What we build together are healthier families, which leads to healthier communities, which leads to a healthier nation. And I just want to thank each of you for continuing to be involved. This is not something that anytime in the near future we'll be able to say, we're done, we've accomplished it. We just have to continue to be vigilant. And Tony, thank you for your vigilance.
Thanks so much, Dr. Carson. It is just shocking that, you would be labeled by any group a terrorist, but, Gates and Fauci are said to be protecting all of us, protecting our health. That's just such an incredible, 1984 moment, like I said before. But I mean, you're dangerous because you're telling people to eat well, to sleep well, to drink whole milk, to work out. Those are incredibly dangerous principles. And they're dangerous because it's going to cost money to the companies that are lying to you and that are selling you products that are going to give you chronic disease, to the junk food companies. You're dangerous to them. And that's a scary thing, that we had a whole generation where people telling the truth, people giving people good advice, they were labeled dangerous. They were vilified. They were deplatformed. And it's just an insane thing. But it's a great moment now when that's starting to end. And, part of it takes place at the level of words, words like ultra processed food or seed oils or beef tallow, or even conversations on whole milk, that the whole narrative, that the media for so long, these companies for so long, they controlled the whole narrative. And now the narrative's changing. And when I look at the polling, the kinds of things that you were saying, those poll now at 80 or 90%. So that's where the real victory is, because that's something that's not going to go away. That the administration can change, but people's minds have been changed. We've won that war. So, just so glad to have you out there saying all these things that are just so simple and so important. So thanks for coming on, I think it's the third time. Next up, we have Del Bigtree, and he is an Emmy Award-winning producer for his work on the Doctors TV series. And he produced the 2016 film Vaxxed. Very brave to do a film like that at the time that came out. The subtitle of it is From Cover Up to Catastrophe. And then he also did the much more recent and just incredibly successful documentary, An Inconvenient Study. And that's what all of this is, that you have to be able to question everything. And Del, more than anybody that I can think of, you have questioned authority just continuously and loudly and, from the rooftops. So, Del is the founder and CEO of the Informed Consent Action Network, ICANN, which has filed dozens of lawsuits and FOIA requests on behalf of all of us, the American people. And as the host of the High Wire, he's had so many of the people who were accused of misinformation who really just wanted to tell the American public the truth. So you platformed, all of those people, giving people the information that they needed to make better decisions. So Del also served as communications director for the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. 2024 presidential campaign. So just a real hero of the MAHA movement. Welcome, Del Bigtree. Hey, Del, we can't hear you.
Mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You got me? Okay.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you for all of your incredible work carrying this MAHA movement for the people. It's extraordinary. I think there's so much that we can celebrate right now. About a year and a half in, I guess, into this administration and the great work they've done. I'm getting MAHA today. I'm all sweaty. I just finished playing a round of golf with my son. I got a couple days off here. I'm enjoying it. But I just got back from a tour. I was just in Japan last week. Before that, I was in Poland and France and also in Italy and England. I'm sort of doing a world tour right now with my film and Inconvenient Study, but also interviewing the top scientists and doctors that found themselves in the middle of that COVID pandemic debacle, and the consistency of the stories around the world. It's really blowing my mind. Maybe I'm late to the punch, but in many ways, it is so clear that a world, takeover was planned using health. And we're very lucky we still have the freedoms that we do here in America. I think our Constitution held up better than all the rest around the world. But when you see the inflation of numbers by paying 5 times as much in hospitals, that started in Italy. It was done in Poland. It was done in France. But tells you this was a scheme. This was a scam to inflate and make us more afraid of a virus than they knew we should be. They knew they had to exaggerate these numbers. And then to discuss with virologists from around the world the use of not really a vaccine technology, but a gene editing technology. Every scientist that knows what that is around the world reached out to their health departments and said, don't use this. It's going to cause cancer. It's going to cause all sorts of issues. So whether it's the greatest, look at negligence on a massive scale or something far more sinister is going on, what we realize is how important our body's sovereignty is, how important our freedom is, and medical freedom, I think, being the absolute tip of that spear. So I just want to speak to everyone in America right now. Everywhere I go, the world is watching us, and they are praying that we win. They are hoping that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to change the entire world for them too, not just in America. And my message to them is, there's only so much Bobby is going to be able to achieve. We have a corrupted government. He's up to his eyeballs in alligators and snakes and sharks, whatever you want to call it. And he's doing an amazing job changing our food supply, getting chemicals out of our food, getting real discussions on what it means to eat healthy, to exercise, taking a look at, plastics and forever chemicals and making, bringing attention to the vaccine issue. For those that I think, Tony, what I want to say, for those people that I see writing that, Bobby Kennedy isn't doing anything, or the MAHA movement is dead, or, he's given up on us. I know, Tony, you know Bobby as well, if not better than I do, but this is a man that never gives up. I think the reason we find ourselves being hard on people like Bobby is because I think we're looking for an excuse to not engage ourselves. Well, if Bobby can't change the world as HHS secretary, then what can I do about it? I have a new term for that. I call it righteous apathy. And if we all continue to involve ourselves in righteous apathy, there's no point in my doing anything because nobody else can do anything. This thing is too big. Then I assure you, we are going to lose. I have been around the world. You can see the different stages of the authoritarian takeover in the different countries you visit. Some are worse off in certain categories than others. But in the end, you can see the global desire to rob us of sovereignty, especially in America. And my message in Japan, in Italy, and France is the same message I want to share here. There is no single Robert Kennedy Jr. that is going to change the world. There is no one person that can do this. The only thing that does this is the recognition that always happens in great global shifts and great governmental shifts, which is the people realize they outnumber the corrupted. And that means every person has to do their part. We must recognize Robert Kennedy Jr. is doing his part. We are not in that job. We are not seeing all of that he has to dance around, whether it's the administration itself or scientists he's working with. Instead of judging him, why don't we do what he's doing? Say a prayer this morning and think about, what can I bring to this fight for freedom? I'm an American. I'm important. I am born in one of the most important times there's ever been. If we all start having that prayer and saying, what can I do? This is not an issue that is just Bobby's or Del Beatries or Tony Lyons or the Maha movements. This is a fight for our species. This is going to involve whether, spatial recognition software and AI tracks us through every stage of our being. We are not making decisions right now that will leave to our grandchildren. I hope they do okay. Every one of us, for the most part, Tony, are going to be laying in our final days aware of whether we left freedom to our children or not. And so to me, I know for sure if we do not fight, we are going to lose. This thing will be over. Our only chance, and really our only choice, and this is my message right now, there is no choice. This isn't someone else's fight. This is our fight in this time for our species right now. For this we were born. We have no choice. Let's step up. Do everything you can, every morning you can. I'm watching communists get elected all across this country. Did that happen in your state? Did you get out and fight that? Are we going to make sure, because one flip of the switch, one bad election here in America, and all hope could be lost? So I'm calling on everyone. Bobby Kennedy is not Maha alone. We are a movement. We are Maha. We are making America healthy again by making freedom reign. We're going to have another 250 years after this if everyone does their part. And so I want to thank everyone that every day gets up and makes a difference in this world. Everyone's capable of it. We are God's children. We are endowed with all of our rights by God. So act accordingly and use them. Speak up, be loud, be proud. This is our time. I want to thank everyone out there. Tony, keep up the great work. And if you see Bobby, give him a big hug and kiss for me.
Del, I just want to say that was really beautiful. And you've been just such an incredibly powerful voice for medical freedom and bodily autonomy. And, all those points you were making, they're such important points to make, that we've been changing the world by changing the culture, by getting the information out there. And, by changing words like, or letting people know about words like beef tallow or seed oils or processed foods or any of those things. And there have been Maha wins every single day. And then, your point about Bobby, that, Bobby can't do it all for us. Like Martin Luther King said, he said he may not get there with us, and Bobby may not get to the promised land of ending chronic disease during his term, but we can all get there. That if you look at the polling, there are 200 million Maha warriors out there, and we can all change ourselves, and nobody can stop us. We can make decisions. We can buy products that are better products. We can force companies to create those products by refusing to buy the junk that they've been serving us in all kinds of ways, in food, in pesticides, in vaccines, in all kinds of things. And if we make those decisions, if 200 million people do that, then the world's changed. Then Bobby Kennedy has won. Then we've all won. So, all the politics stuff, they're going to be good days, they're going to be bad days, but there are people like you out there, and there are hundreds and hundreds of other people doing it to a lesser degree. And all of us, we have so much power, and we are changing the world. Bobby is changing the world, and President Trump is helping change the world here. So this is an incredible time. This is an incredible moment. And I'm just really grateful for the film, the incredible film you just put out, and for all the work that you've been doing for so many years. This is your moment. This is the Maha moment. This is the moment for all of our families to take back their health. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tony. Best luck with everything. I'm so optimistic about this time we're living in. It's really, we should be thankful that it's on our shoulders. Keep up the good work.
Definitely. So next up, we have Dr. Eric Berg, and he's known as the Knowledge Doc, and he's earned that title by becoming a globally recognized health teacher. And he speaks to more than 45 million followers on all kinds of different platforms. And he's been doing that for 3 decades. And he's helping people to comprehend how their own bodies work, to navigate this system that we have in this country where people are lied to, where people who are trying to tell the truth get deplatformed. So we need Dr. Berg. We need somebody who's really studied these things year after year to come out day after day and post things and tell, something like 1 in 8 people in the country, probably somebody from every family in the country, how they can support their own health with practical strategies. So just an incredible thinker, writer, researcher, and a key Maha visionary. And he's working on a groundbreaking book called Change Your Environments, because our current environment, all of them, is just making us sick. So Dr. Berg, thanks for all that you're doing, and welcome.
Tony, thank you so much. And on that note, I do want to talk about something that's a really pressing problem in society right now. And that's one of the biggest questions online is mothers and fathers wondering about their children with vaping and the toxicity with vaping. I want to cover some misconceptions on that because I keep getting that over and over and over. I think it's very timely right now because we're trying to change the environment. We're trying to get rid of the toxins out of the environment. And one of them is the vaping. Vaping is not just the safe thing, that it's just a safe replacement to smoking. So I want to go through 3 really important misconceptions. Number 1, people vape because they think it relaxes them. It gives them a sense of stress relief. And they think, wow, this must be good, right? Well, this is a myth because nicotine is a stimulant. It speeds things up. It increases pulse rate, increases blood pressure. What happens really over time is nicotine raises your stress to the point, after about 3 weeks of vaping, you're going to be in a state where you're going to have pressure and higher cortisol. And then the vaping, what that does, it gives you some temporary relief from that. You think, oh, this is relaxing me, but it's actually bringing down the cortisol that the vaping has created. One unit that the vape unit is equal to the same amount of exposure to about 400 cigarettes. I mean, it's just incredible how much you're getting in your body as far as these puffs. An average person who is like a heavy vapor will get about 70,000 puffs per year. This is insane. So that would be myth number 1. And what happens is it's an artificial thing. Myth number 2, people think that nicotine or these vaping makes them happy. Well, this is another myth. It doesn't make you happy. It's the same trick, but slightly different. Nicotine works on these, it mimics other chemicals in the body. One is called acetylcholine, another one is called dopamine. And dopamine is kind of a feel-good chemical. So you keep doing this over and over and over, and the brain turns the dopamine down. So now you have this mood that flattens out. So you came into this with a higher mood, and then now you have a lower mood. And so you get this temporary boost in mood, making you think, wow, vaping is making me happier. It's not. It's just bringing you up to above the flat line that this problem created. So unfortunately, it affects our emotion and in a big way. And not only that, the cognitive function as well. Number 3, Number three, people think that vaping is just water. It's like a gas. No, vaping produces an aerosol. These are tiny little liquid droplets, small enough to carry nicotine, solvents, flavoring chemicals, which were never designed to be inhaled, deep into your lungs. And so you have something that is like very, very new to our bodies that we've never done before. And they have worked on how to create these toxic solvents without causing coughing and harshness. And to do that, they alter the chemistry of it so you can actually consume a lot of it and not get the breaks. So you end up getting a lot of extra things in your body without any kind of resistance. So what they have to do is they have to heat up this liquid to a few hundred degrees. Okay, so they heat it up. You're not combusting it. You're not actually turning into a flame like you would a cigarette, but you're still heating it up. And then now you're getting more solvents. One solvent is formaldehyde. That's right. Formaldehyde is going into the body. That's something they embalm you with. Another one is acetaldehyde. So you're getting chemicals. You're getting even some heavy metals like nickel and chromium from the heating coil. So it is true that vaping is less dangerous than smoking, but it's not safe, especially for teenagers. So I hope if you are a parent watching this, get your teenager to watch this and reevaluate if it's something you really want to do long term, because it's going to affect your health in the long run. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thanks, Dr. Berg. And, so important with something like vaping, because for so long, people have told us trust the science. And, you kind of have to think about what that means, because the science in this country has been corrupt and it's been controlled by the companies that are trying to sell us something. So they try to sell us something and then they sell us their science, which is really just marketing for their product. And then people say, oh, well, all the science says that it's perfectly fine to consume or to be close to or to in any way let these products get into our bodies. And so it's so important to have somebody like you who isn't trying to sell us anything, who's just trying to get us to think about things more and to question more, to question the authority, because the authority has just been marketing for a whole generation. So we don't know what the science is for all kinds of things. So we want to be able to question things, and we want to learn about ourselves and learn what questions to ask so that we can do a better job, because we followed the science and that failed. And that failed. And Dr. Fauci, he failed his way to the top, became so incredibly powerful. But we know that we spent 2.5 times what any other country on earth spent per person, and we got such incredibly bad health outcomes. And I think that people like you talking to, like I said, 1 in 8 people in the country, really getting messages out that people should think more, they should question more, they should investigate, and they should learn to make better decisions for themselves. Because 200 million people in this polling that I mentioned with Dell, 200 million people want to be healthier, and they're voting for MAHA, questions. And they want to have information that's more accurate, that's more informative. And so they're open, and that's the real victory that's happened. And it's happened in large part because of people like you. So thank you so much for all the work that you've been doing, and look forward to just working with you for years and years.
Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate it.
So just a few final thoughts. First, I just want to thank all of you for joining us today. I think this is our 24th MAHA Media Hub. And so I just want to thank all of you for tuning in each week. We have just an incredible group of people coming on week after week. And these are real warriors. These are fighters who, most of whom were fighting when it wasn't popular, when there was nothing in it for them. There was no money, there was no power, there was no fame. It was just because they were moved to do the right thing, and they wanted to help the American public, and they suffered for that, and they were punished for that because they were a danger to the people controlling the narrative, who were poisoning us and who were lying to us. So thank you for tuning in each week. We're going to just keep on doing this for as long as we possibly can. And we're going to make sure that, we amplify the daily MAHA wins that are coming out of HHS and, USDA and EPA, that this is an incredible moment. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that they take part in that. And no, Del is right. Bobby can't do it all by himself. None of them. Lee Zeldin can't do it by himself. But these people, Bobby and Lee, all of them, they're open to it. And they're trying to do the best they can. But we're learning enough to make us dangerous. And dangerous in the sense that we are going to make sure that our families are safe and that we do a better job protecting our own health and our friends' health and our children's health. So thanks again for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the MAHA Media Hub every Wednesday at 4 p.m.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
It is a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.